Thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Wilson.
And I'm Chris Ehmke.
And this is Diesel Performance Podcast. Guys, we got a great show set up for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about one of the live events that just went on. We're going to dive into what to watch and monitor when you're towing. But before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Of course, WC Fab has been a longtime partner of not just Diesel Performance Podcast, but also Calibrated Power and Duramax Tuner, who are also sponsors on the show. One of the things that we like about working with WC Fab is their amazing reputation in quality and consistency. Yeah. And I think that's really, if you want something custom powder coated, if you want something to just look perfect and fit perfect and work the way it's supposed to, WC Fab's the place to check out.
Yeah. Exergy Performance, right? We've said it 100 times over, Paul. Your one-stop shop, anything common rail, whether it's stock or heavily modified injectors, pumps, FCAs, fuel pressure regulators, lines, and anything else in between. There's a consistency there that Exergy provides that. We institutionally, right, we know that if a customer says, hey, I have Exergy fuel system, parts in the truck, they're going to be good stuff. There's going to be a consistency when it comes to the tuning. There's going to be a consistency when it comes to the power output. So there's a lot to be had there, right? The household name. So.
It's good to be able to rely on somebody, and that's why we love working over at Calibrated Power, Duramax Tuner. That's where Chris and I spend all of our free and fun time during the week. Yeah. What we love about working here is that not just do we get to make awesome products and work with a lot of really cool people, but there is a passion from top to bottom in this company of people who just give a fuck, people who just want to make awesome products and provide amazing service. And that's kind of what you and I are all about. So. Yeah, it's been a blast. All right, for today, first things first, I want to talk a little bit about a trip to Thoroughbred that you just made, Chris, and then that'll walk us into talking about towing. So you and Sean Lynn, listeners may remember Sean Lynn is our customer service extraordinaire, service expert. Anybody know what I used to call him?
No.
It was some sort of expert. He was expert.
There's 100 nicknames here for him,
yes.
So
Yeah, Agent Lynn absolutely was a huge part of the podcast for a while there. He was the one who was going over all our customer service instructions, things of that nature. He got a chance to ride down with you to his first show at Thoroughbred Diesel. Chris, tell our listeners, what was that experience like? When did you guys go, and what did you do?
Yeah, so Wade and all the great guys over at Thoroughbred, they approached us a few months back, and they're like, hey, we've done Judgment Day for years, which was a dyno event in-house. They usually held that in the fall. And then they've done some sled pulls they've tried, pulling off over recent years. And, just timing stinks, man. Spring into summer, ramp up with all the events. And, it was an event that for them, it wasn't what they were wanting to put their name on. It's probably the best way to put it. So they came to us and they're like, hey, we're going to do a 3-day event. It's going to be WD dealer training, stuff like that. We're inviting our dealer network to come in-house, and we want our vendors to teach them and help them with their business. And then on Saturday, we're going to do a huge open house. We want all our vendors to have booths, and we're going to do a dyno with the Northwest Dyno Circuits dyno.
Oh, nice.
So that was there. We're going to do a big show and shine. There's going to be, food trucks, live music, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. So, of course, being that, Thoroughbred's been a big supporter of us for a long time and vice versa. We've been doing business with them for years. We threw our hat in the ring right away. That was kind of the start of it. So Sean and I drove down Thursday night. And when I say Thursday night, we left Northern Illinois at 10 o'clock at night, got to Southern Kentucky, Winchester, right? When you talk to Kentucky, it's either north or south. There's no central, it seems like, with those guys. But we drove down to Kentucky, got there at 5 a.m., slept an hour and a half, and pretty much from there we made it to Thoroughbred, unloaded our trailer, and then went to the venue where they were doing their presentations.
Okay.
Our presentations.
Yeah.
So. Shout out to Chris, Adam, and Wade. They sold me on a little bit different of an event.
I love this story.
So they were talking about. There's no secret here, guy. I'm not the best public speaker. I don't like it. I get very nervous, very sweaty. I can talk one-on-one.
Literally talk for a living.
Right, talk for a living.
Host a podcast for like 5 years.
There's a camera in my face in most cases when I'm being filmed, or it's you and me or you and Justin. I also hate listening to myself, and I hate watching myself. Those are things that I just do not do. In public speaking, I will literally fucking freeze. Like,
Jesus,
freeze
princess.
up. So yeah, I know. So there was 100-some people at this convention. That,
not 30.
Not 30.
Not 30. No. Okay, you were told 20 to 30.
I was told there were going to be small groups.
Yeah.
So, but to each their own. It is what it is. Short story. It was awesome. Some of the biggest vendors, the businesses that, we compete with in this industry were there. And it was really cool to learn something about all those companies. And, it was really nice to get in front of those guys regardless. I should have prepared probably a little bit better. I'm over judgmental on my performance, but,
I'm sure it was crap.
It probably was. No lie at all. But nonetheless, it was nice to talk to everybody and kind of just explain where we come from as an institution. Our foundation, our growth, where we're spearheading the industry, right? Where we're trying to drive the industry to go. And then after that, there was like this vendor hall back at Thoroughbred where all of the dealers could come up to all the booths and talk to all the companies, and the reception was awesome. The podcast, Paul, it was amazing to me how many guys are like, I know you from the podcast.
Wait, business owners, yes.
So business owners, technicians that were there, like that's
always so cool.
There was a recognition on the podcast that I wasn't wearing a podcast shirt, nothing like that. They knew the voice, they knew the company, they knew who I was. So it was really cool to see that. So, shout out to all the listeners, honestly. Like, it takes those types of events to just really humble you. Like, I'm getting chills talking about it now.
So we joke often about being podcast famous.
Yeah.
And how stupid it is, because it was such an excuse to get out of doing real work and have fun for an hour a week when it started. Yeah. And now it has turned into something that it's feel grateful that we get to do this.
I had a gentleman's wife come up to me and say, your voice puts me to sleep at night because my husband listens to the podcast, we're driving this and that. And it was really, it was funny, right? I'm sorry that I'm what you had to listen to,
On purpose.
But the one thing that I want to take from that event, I always, whenever I travel or do anything, and, probably pre-COVID, I took on any opportunity I could to travel. I like being new places, meeting new people. I like seeing different areas in the way the demographic is, right? The truck, the here it's probably a little bit more GM based. I would probably say.
Sure.
We have all three, right? But there are pockets, for different things. So,
Southern Kentucky, you're talking about hard third-gen Cummins company.
It is one of those things where, we've always dubbed Kentucky as, I remember there was a dollar amount that Thoroughbred said they used to sell in injector pumps a year for VP44s.
Yeah.
So that was just like, it's a VP44 world. And it's not anymore, right? Like, there were only a few second-gen trucks there. There were a lot of third-gen common rail trucks, and there were a ton of Duramaxes. Like,
really,
there were a handful of Fords, but a lot of Duramaxes.
Because I want to say I was at Judgment Day, and I want to say that there was like
mechanical Cummins left and right, man.
There was something insane. They dynoed well over 100 trucks in a day at the Judgment Day I went to, and out of whatever it was, call it 100 plus trucks. I think you could count all the Duramaxes that dynoed on both hands. Yeah. Like, there was less than 10 the whole day. So it's nuts to hear you talking about that changing.
It's definitely changing, right? And it's speaking of change, it was one of those things where I've maybe not have done a seminar where I've heard other companies speak.
Yeah.
But I have been in places where I've heard other company owners and other guys that are high up in these companies talk about where the future of the industry is going. And one of the things as we talk about change is, calibrated power Duramax tuner, we've been kind of at the forefront of emissions on clean power. And we've gotten a lot of flack over the years for that.
Yeah.
Right? A ton of flack.
Yeah.
we've been accused of working for the government directly. We've been accused of that.
Our names have been used to say you are EPA agents.
Which to the feds, we're still waiting on our checks. If that's the case, we want our money.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to see the change of events and other companies that I have looked up to in the industry prior to making this my career are all starting to take shape of like, okay, this is where the future is, 50 state, EO, emissions present, that kind of thing.
Sure.
If you want to be sustainable in this industry, what's crazy is all those companies that made those references all have a foundation in the industry to support the customer. Okay, it's not just I'm going to go on the forum and I'm going to go on Messenger and buy a part from this guy because I can get my hands on it and then have zero support after. So then I'm going to put that guy on blast on the forum on Facebook because he screwed me.
Yeah.
You're not doing business with a business. You're doing business with an individual versus doing business with, a Calibrated Power or a Fleece Performance or a Dynamite Diesel or an Air Dog or a Fast or whatever that company may be. It's an established business that you're going to be able to have support for after the sale or after that part's been installed if there is a problem. And that was just an eye-opener for me is, as these companies are becoming bigger and bigger, they want that foundation to support. And I think that's a trickle-down effect as, a lot of our listeners, they're either in the process of they're an enthusiast in the space, okay? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're taking on the role of what DJ down in our shop did, where he would wrench on a couple buddies' trucks and then realize, shit, I'm just going to do this for a living, and went to a dealership and then made his way here, right?
Right.
So there's guys that are working 2-3 jobs. There are guys that are just wrenching on trucks and they want to make this their living. The practice of business or the practice of how to modify a truck has changed. And, that's just the eye-opener, right, altogether. So it was really nice to get a bunch of people in one area that are big in the industry to kind of see that there's that common ground or that common drive at this point of, where that growth could come from.
Absolutely. No, that's so cool to hear. It is wild to see the tides turning on some of this, right? To see guys coming around and even see new businesses coming up. And that's what always really excites me is like, there's always going to be the older crop of guys who just did things their way, and that's how they're always going to do it and how they're always going to see it. And that just is what it is. They're welcome to that, right?
Of course.
But when you start seeing the new crop of guys coming up and just starting their shops, and like you said, wrenching in their driveways and getting their first bay and getting their first lift and things like that, it's like when those guys are saying, I want to do it right. I want to do it emissions equipped. I want to do it the legal way.
That's
just
going to drive
to be here forever.
Yeah, that's going to drive the industry in that forward way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, it was, like I said, that Friday was super cool. It was super eye-opening, just having that opportunity to talk to those shop guys.
Open house, most important question, what kind of food did they have going on?
Oh, man. So for the vendor stuff on Friday, there were a couple different, we missed the breakfast, but for lunch it was just, sandwiches, noodle salad, real good noodle salad, by the way. I'm a big noodle salad fan, so it was good. It was good. All joking aside, they had liquor. I didn't drink any liquor. I kept it professional, surprisingly.
I don't believe you.
Swear to God.
You know this,
Swear
right?
to God.
Yeah. I don't know what you paid Sean Lynn to tell a lie about this, but it's I'll get it out of him.
But, we wrapped up that event on Friday around 5 p.m., and we went back to the hotel, and honestly, it was just catch up on sleep because we knew Saturday was going to be the big day, right?
Right.
Wake up Saturday to fucking rain. Tons of rain. Every year at a Thoroughbred event, it rains in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So
Kentucky's too poor for good weather.
Oh my God, that's not
that's
true.
That's a Wade joke.
Wade
yeah, he's crushing it.
I think he said that to me Saturday when I was giving him shit. So the event was supposed to start at 9. It ended up not starting till noon. I'll tell you what, man. The diesel enthusiasts, the diesel goers, they're brave, man. You got guys with custom one-off paint jobs and wrap jobs and big wheels towing their trucks throughout a fucking thunderstorm to make it to this event. And I didn't think there would be any trucks in the show and shine. They had over 50, 60 trucks in the show and shine alone. All of the guys from the dyno piece to the trucks that were competing, they ran through 40, 50 trucks in the matter of like 4.5 hours.
That's
like
so
just
wild.
Crazy to think about, right?
Yeah.
So, was the turnout the way that they wanted? Probably not. The weather definitely deterred people. We all know that. But all in all, hindsight 2020, it was a good event. End users. So, Saturday, right, that was for the customer, right? I had a Diesel Performance Podcast t-shirt on. So there were a couple.
Rep.
Had to, right? The booth repped enough for Calibrated. I'm like, you know what? I got to give some flavor, some love for Paul and I. And it was amazing how many guys come up. They're like, oh, I've heard of Stealth. I've heard of Duramax Tuner. podcast. I've heard you. I've listened to you, right? So, as always, the guys that I was able to run into, it was, thank you for the good content. Thank you for teaching me something, giving me a resource to learn more about diesel performance. I have modified my truck based on things that Paul and you have said over the years. So, again, super humbling. That is the motivation and the drive for me to continue doing what we do.
That's
right?
so cool to hear.
Simple as that.
Absolutely.
So, all in all, just the event was super good. The Thoroughbred boys, they put on a hell of a show. They're already talking about what next year looks like. And, for them, it's just more or less they want to give back to their dealer network, and they know that if their dealers are doing well, they're doing well, and they just want to throw back like, hey, we made a lot of mistakes. A lot of business owners, we could get Nick in a podcast right now and say, hey, what are the top 5 things you messed up on in growing a business?
Sure.
Right? He could teach someone what not to do, and I think that's just super powerful.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. No, that's so cool. So cool of Thoroughbred and the whole crew over there.
Yeah.
Really, really appreciate working with them. They've always been a blast to be around. Definitely had some of the most fun I've ever had at a show at a Thoroughbred event.
Same. Yeah. My Chris here, he flat out came up to me on Friday and was like, hey man, like, or it was Saturday. He goes, I just want you to know, like the staff, they were saying that, you conduct yourself really well. You're not wild. You're not crazy. He goes, but I know the old you. Like I know, and he mentioned some stories, and those guys know how to put on a show. They know how to take care of you after hours, going out downtown and just having a night on the town. Downtown Lexington is super pretty.
I don't know that I've ever made it to.
You just probably don't remember.
Yeah, that's also possible.
But it's the nightlife down there. It's definitely cool. It's a quaint little city. So
yeah,
it's pretty nice.
Quaint little city. I love that. Okay, all right. Well, hey, a part of going down there and coming back was having to take the 22 Cummins, the shop truck.
Yeah.
Somehow you pried those keys out of Nick's cold dead hands. I assume. I haven't seen him since you took it, so I assume he's dead somewhere.
Yeah. That was a challenge in its own.
So you got the keys to the 22 Cummins, which I think you and Tim Mahoney talked about the tuning that we put on it. And then you guys hooked it to our enclosed trailer. God, it's a heavy trailer. Not a lot in it. It's a heavy trailer, but
the trailer
we didn't have it loaded to the max, I'll say.
The trailer, it's an old car hauler. It's very tongue heavy.
Yeah.
So the weight is very awkward, but it's not a V-nose. So it's a flat face. It's a fucking brick going through the wind, man.
It really is.
You feel every bit of it. Anybody in this company that's ever towed that trailer with a single wheel complains.
Yeah.
The trailer plays nicely with a dually. Our old 19HO Ram, the truck drove and towed well.
I think the 450 too. I think when we had the
450, I don't think I ever towed with that. So I know the only dually I've ever had firsthand was the Ram HO truck. But so we took the 22, loaded it up with our booth, in the trailer and everything that we needed to bring down there, and we boogied on down there.
Yeah, so it's a 7-hour drive. What's nice about that drive, if you do it during the day like normal people, is once you get south of Illinois, it's beautiful. And even like southern Illinois has its charm, or if you're going to jump to Indiana and go down, whatever route you're going to take.
We did 65 to 64. So
okay.
Your Indiana,
all the way through, which is boring as fuck.
It is.
But
then when you get to Kentucky, there's good scenery.
Beautiful.
Yep.
And what's nice is that 65 through Indiana, it's so practical because it's so flat and it's so straight that if you're ever going to measure like your best practical towing fuel mileage, like that's the stretch to do it on.
Yeah.
But with that, it's a real new truck. You had now you drove down there or Sean drove down there? I know you guys split it up. One of you
Sean
drove
down. I drove back.
Okay.
We weren't in a rush to get down there, and I was a rush to get back. So
nice.
Sean drove the truck in a very sensible way that we would instruct the customer to drive. Just transparent as possible.
Almost like he read instructions and followed them word for word.
He had it in the appropriate tune. He maintained a appropriate vehicle speed given the trailer and the load.
Yeah. Man, we missed the mark. We should have had him in here. I bet he could repeat back each number he saw.
He probably could. He probably has it memorized in his head.
Yeah.
He also has every moment memorized or in the back of his head that he had to correct me on how I was driving coming home, because that's the real test, right?
Oh yeah.
So
I had
to check him a couple times and tell him like, you drive the way you tell the customer to drive. I'm driving the way the customer actually drives, but won't admit that that's how they drive. So, the truck going down there, he did a really nice job, maintained 70, 75 mile an hour the whole time. The truck just effortlessly hauled the trailer. I mean, you would feel it when you get over a bump.
Yeah.
The trailer, like I said, is very tongue heavy, so it really moves the ass end of the truck around. You feel it. Nothing really to report out of the ordinary there. I mean, the truck did well. Coming home, though, I think there is a few things to note. For example, that truck was 85, 90 plus the whole way coming home down 64 and 65. Intake air temps never went over like 115 degrees. Trans temps never went over 172 degrees.
No shit.
EGTs never went over 1175. Right.
So if you throw a speedo out, this is one thing I've always kind of thought of with trucks. Like if you really know your gauges well and you throw your speedo and your tack out and you're like, I'm just going to watch the inputs or the output numbers that matter the most to the safety of the truck.
Okay.
Everything you just listed is like beautiful. It's like, oh, you're in the perfect operating range. Keep it at that RPM. I mean, your mileage, I assume, was trash compared to
the mileage going down.
Land.
The mileage going down versus the mileage going up, that was significantly impaired.
Yeah.
We were towing back, and I mean these real world numbers, right? Sean going down there, towing that trailer again. The trailer is a brick going through the wind. It's not aerodynamic. It does hurt you. He was averaging around 12 and a half. Just north of 12 and a half.
Sure.
Put that into perspective. That is very, very similar to like what our HO dually would get. 11 and a half, about a mile difference.
Okay.
85, 90 mile an hour, 9.5, 10. That's what you got. But
honestly, better than what I thought you were going to say. But yes.
And that's what Tim had said too when we were kind of going back and forth. And I think, it just puts it into perspective. Just because the truck can do it doesn't mean it's going to be the best at doing it. Now, that trailer is very heavy, nose heavy, and it's not aerodynamic. I keep saying that because that is a big piece here.
Yeah, it's like dragging a sail for sure.
It really is at that speed as well. But with that added drag, that's where I think you would start to see those temperatures really get out of whack, and they never really did. They were always manageable, controllable.
Well, yeah, the beginning part of that run too, going through the hills in Kentucky as you're on 64. I'm trying to think. It's been a hot minute since I'm down that way, so forgive me, anybody local, if I got my geography off. But some of those hills, you're pulling maybe not like an extreme grade in elevation.
It's not like you're hitting the mountains.
But you're working the truck.
Oh, absolutely.
You're working the truck.
Yeah.
And when you can see that and feel that, especially like you have everything kind of stacked against you. You got a trailer that's probably pushing the limit of what's reasonable to put on the hitch. Yeah. You have a truck that's a single wheel instead of a dually. It's also like the brand new stuff you're fairly safe with, right? It's not like we're talking about an LB7 where we got to talk about brake lines popping or something stupid.
You still have the temperatures, right? And it's about the engine being worked. You're talking coolant temps. You're talking engine oil temps. You're talking, intake air temps I'm not really too concerned with, but it was nice to monitor. But, oil temps, coolant temps, they stayed in check the entire time, going up the grade, trying to maintain that type of vehicle speed. And it was... When I got in the truck, the thing I wanted to make sure on the display that I was monitoring, I wanted to make sure that I had coolant temp. I wanted to make sure I had intake air temp. I wanted to make sure I had oil temperature, which the coolant and oil I can monitor on the dash, right? I wanted to monitor my trans temp. I wanted to monitor the nerdy thing, but the drive and boost pressure.
Okay.
Just because I know as we do more and more turbo R&D, funny thing, right? I don't have a ton of experience driving stock turbo trucks. Like I really don't. Like
that's such an odd thing to think of,
really
but
is.
I guess that is pretty true.
For me personally, right? Like being on the floor and talking to guys, Nick has that data and Nick knows what to compare to when he does the turbo R&D. But like me, I got into my 15 that I bought from him with twins, right? And then we go into the single, and that's all I ever knew. And Nick's been harping me on my new to me truck. I want to leave the stock turbo on there for a bit because I kind of want to understand and get a little bit more involved. And the 22 did exactly that, right? I was able to see what the drive, what the boost pressure was under a load, how that correlated to EGT. And it was nice to be able to see what the difference is there compared to like what we've seen in our STR or our 64 line.
Sure.
So, it was cool.
What was ballpark on a ratio? What was a ratio when you were cruising at 85 miles an hour on flat ground at sea level on a good sunny shiny day? You were seeing close to 1-to-1. You were seeing 1.5 to 1
with the madman behind the keyboard, right? Just working his magic. It was 1-to-1 pretty much the entire time, like hitting a grade, going up a hill. Let's say the truck was, airing up pretty heavy, talking 20, 22 PSI a boost. Drive pressure was 22, 23, 25. Like it was, if the boost was under 20 PSI, it was 1-to-1.
Wow.
So very impressive,
yeah.
I thought. But, there's a lot of calibration support that's gone into supporting that. It's not like I took a stock truck there. Like, that truck has a badass RevMax valve body in it. We have the line pressure there. We have our switch-on-the-fly tuning that, we have released. 19 to 21 are going to be similar, but the 22s, it's in its own wheelhouse. But, it has the latest and greatest technology that we can, as an institution, be able to offer the end user.
Sure.
So
I love it. Well, hey, that's good reporting. Thank you so much, Chris. I know that was a fun story for me to hear. I'm sure all of our listeners loved it. Guys, we're going to be out at UCC.
Dude,
Chris and I will both be there Saturday, June 3rd. We're going to be in Indianapolis. The show's going on, of course, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We'll be at the Calibrated Power Duramax Tuner booth. We're right behind that big AMSOIL booth. You won't be able to miss us.
There you go.
We'll be loud and rowdy. So come on by. Chris will sign any shirt you want for podcast fame. And take an Instagram picture with you and your mother, no problem. For today, this has been Paul Wilson
and Chris Ehmke.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson
and Chris Ehmke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
We've been accused of working for the government. Paul, directly, we've been accused
our
of
names,
that.
Our names have been used to say you are EPA agents.
Which to the feds, we're still waiting on our checks. If that's the case, we want our money.
Yeah.